didn't have a straight jacket, but I went.
Thank God.
Thank you, amen. Jesus, glory to heaven. Oh, whatever.
Baby Jesus.
Buddha, woo-hoo-hoo.
Buddha, woo-hoo.
Hare Krishna, woo-hoo. I don't know. Moses.
Yahweh. Did you say Elvis? Oh, I thought I heard you say Elvis. Elvis.
How you doing?
How you doing? I'm freezing. I am so cold. It is winter in Spain. I am freezing cold. It's Monday. You're cold too because you're in Canada.
Jesus, yeah, I am. I don't like my hubby. We hadn't turned down the heat for a bit, like because it gets hot during the night.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I made some tea because we're gonna spill some tea today.
I think so. I think we should spill a lot of tea. Tea is good.
I think so. Well, I'm Henry C, and this is my sister.
Are we recording?
Yes, of course we're recording. You have nothing in your teeth. Look how beautifully pearly white.
I try to brush them. It's necessary.
Try?
Yeah, I try. I desperately try.
I don't know.
I'm going the wrong way. It's always this back return, like when you're looking in them. See, this way is the opposite way for me. I mean, that's how they work.
I know. If I point that way, that's to my right.
Right.
Except for this way.
Right.
So,
right.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll figure it out eventually.
Oh, I got my hair. I braided it myself. Couple of braids. Not too spectacular, but it feels good. And you know what? This is a style of complete laziness. I am tired of putting 50, 60. Usually takes me like 3 days. I put about 5 or 6 big braids in my head, and I'm good for a good while. I don't have that. I just don't have time for all of that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I have things to do, and it was just it kind of resembles a snakes.
Because of the theme this week is
segue.
That's a beautiful segue. Cheers to your segue.
The segues. Yeah, you know it. Oh my goodness, the snake pit.
The snake.
What sound do snakes make? I don't know.
I have a really interesting theory about that, actually.
Oh, you have it? Oh, okay. Share. Do tell.
You know how when you have a snake and you corner it, and it's like
okay. I haven't cornered it before, but okay.
Okay, but you've seen it in movies, right?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Right, where the snake is coiled up,
right,
and it crouches down and it goes, it hisses, right? What does a cat do when it's scared and cornered? Same thing. And it flattens its ears down.
Right.
It goes like that. Its eyes have the same vertical pupil.
Okay.
And the tail goes like this, right? When it's angry, when it's not like a dog that wags its tail when it's happy. A cat, when it's, it lowers its head, flattens its ears, and its tail goes like this. I wonder if there's something evolutionarily connected there between cats and snakes.
You know what? That
theory,
not far fetched. It's very plausible. Why not? Very plausible. Very plausible.
I think so. So listen, let's get on it because I know you got things to do and places to go and people to see.
I've got some room to breathe. I've got room to do what I need. It's all good.
That's all right.
The snake pit. Oh, I wasn't expecting what I saw. I mean, yes, it was a classic, blah blah, beautifully filmed, if I may say so myself.
Yes.
And what I love about all the classic movies that we do watch is that there's the special effects are always so fucking creative and simple. Like it's just, and the amount of energy we put in today's special effects, you almost like cry and go, have we gotten dumber? Because it's just
yes, because we have indeed, and Flat Stanley agrees.
Hey, Flat Stanley, what's up?
Hey, baby.
No, because I'm looking at it. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But that's just something I noticed. But the movie in general did bring me back. You know what? I was sitting down in my room, I think the night that we watched it, which is usually Fridays, and I was watching it, and I was laying in bed. And I just said to myself, mind, you are allowed to go wherever you want. I'm just going to let you go. Where do you want to go? I'm not thinking about stressing about nothing. I don't need to fix anything. So we're going to play. Where would you like to go? And I had this movie, the movie that we watched, The Snake Pit, in mind. So I was curious to see where my body would naturally land. And it took me back to a moment that I had not remembered in my childhood. And I remember I used to talk about this story a lot when I was in my 20s and 30s, because the whole experience really gave me a real definition of what I believe to be God. I know, it's so insane. Okay, so all right. Okay, so I believe I am 9 years old, and maybe 10. I think a year before I ran away from my childhood home, because I ran away at 11. So I think it was the year prior to it, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we live in a, as some people like to label it, ghettos, whatever. And this, just to give you a backdrop of the area that I lived in. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am in bed, and I remember saying to myself as a child, saying, I feel like I'm going into a pit. I need to get out of here. I don't like this life. I feel like I'm dying. And I remember out of the blue, and I can't believe this movie brought it back. I get out of my childhood bed, and I go barefoot. I open the door, and I run down the hallway, out of the building, into the schoolyard, into the pitch black school. Because the schoolyard is like literally like a street away. You cross the street, and since it was a court, there was no cars coming. Cars just turn around. So I crossed the court, and I into the schoolyard, and I stood there, and I said, God, I don't want to be anywhere here. I hate this place. It's like a snake pit. I hate it. I hate it here. And I was hating everybody in my family, everybody. And I said, I want to go home. And no word of a lie, I shit you not, I heard a voice say, go back. And I said, but I'm not happy. And it said, go back. And I started crying. And I had no fear up until that point. I guess I hadn't clued in that I was outside in the middle of the night by myself.
Barefoot. Yeah.
And when that voice sunk in, and I realized I had to go back into this fucking pit, I got afraid. And suddenly fear took me over, and I ran back to my house as fast as I could, opened the door as slowly as I could so my mama didn't hear me. And I locked it. I went back into bed, and I cried. And that was the day I vowed to get out of the snake pit called my life. And a year later, I ran away.
What 9-10-year-old child knows what a snake pit is? That is crazy that you were channeling this moment. Like you were predicting the future. Like we would be sitting here having a conversation about a movie called The Snake Pit that deals with mental health.
Yes. So it was just like I didn't.
Not from the child's perspective, but it does deal with childhood trauma.
Yes, thank you. That was my point. Oh my fucking God. My fuck. That's what connected the fuck is when the doctor said to her. The doctor said, I'm having too much fun.
I'll beep them all out. I'll beep them all out. Beep, 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 beep.
Okay. Is when the doctor said to her, the reason why you can't fall in la la la. We're gonna get to the movie in a second.
Yes.
It goes back to this basic childhood memory where she blamed her mom didn't give her what she needed.
That's right.
She didn't have the capacity to love. So she goes to her next parent, and the parent, blows the loyalty, and then she just gets mad. And I remember someone telling me in my 20s and 30s, my spiritual mother, that is, she said, and I said, why can't my mom just fucking love me already? What the fuck is wrong with her? And the woman looked at me and said, You cannot get blood out of a stone. Your mom never learned to love, so she will never love. So stop.
Right.
And I was like, and I just started crying because I realized that if someone doesn't teach you or reaffirm your what you need to learn, especially as a child, you will go on playing that out in life. Hence this movie. Boom, bitches. Thank you.
You know, I think I've related to this film for many, many years. It's basically about a woman played by the incredible Olivia de Havilland, who has a mental breakdown, and she doesn't know why. And she meets this guy, falls in love, marries him, but there's always sort of this edge, right? What is going on? And how many of us have had a similar feeling where I'm wanting to connect with this person, I'm wanting to share my life with this person, and there's something holding me back that I don't get. I don't understand. Where is it coming from? Bada beep, bada ba. Most of us are not taught to examine our own biographies to find out why our behavior as adults comes out in certain ways, or why certain defenses go up, why certain walls go up, right? And so I think this film is relatable universally. I think we all have had parents who at one time or another couldn't give us what we needed. And there's, you know, in a two-family home, when you're in it with one parent, and then the other parent who you are trusting to comfort you and protect you and take, you know, hold you up, and they take the side of the other parent, that's like massive betrayal on both sides. And I do think that has to not, I mean, this is all about psychoanalysis. It is about going back and identifying, you know, and sometimes we need help with that, don't we?
We sure do. We need, you don't even realize that some of the, and this is to y'all watching, y'all that sometimes don't realize the bullshit that's happening in your life is a reoccurring from a stamp that was put upon you as a child. It was stamped and impressed upon you, and you're wondering, why do I attract bad like assholes or complete fucking bitches or just people who are just toxic? It's because perhaps, you know, unfortunately, when your parents were learning to raise you, I know, that's such mamas
you
and
know,
papas.
I mean, seriously, we gotta put out some blessing for our parents.
Honestly, let's take
thing.
a moment for our parents.
Take a moment.
Let's bow our heads for our moments for all the parents who believe they failed, but really they were just learning like we were. Now, shall we take a moment?
Let's take a moment. Pause. Okay, that's enough.
Okay,
anyway.
Good. Yeah, well, seriously, they don't need any more than that because no one's pausing for my black ass. So
thank you, or my black ass. Exactly. You know, I mean, but this will be a very interesting exploration because, you know, and I read something recently by a Holocaust survivor, Elie Wiesel, who said, and I'm plagiarizing it and bastardizing it, but he said something to the effect of, we tell our stories not to gain pity,
right,
but to inform and reflect and heal one another. And that's what I think we do on Classic Screenshots, because a lot of what we do is we are expressing how we were triggered by the movies that we're watching. What positive, negative, what made us laugh, what made us cry, what gave us these memory moments of, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this moment, right? But it's also interesting to sort of compare notes. This is one of the things I love about our dynamic, is that we had very different backgrounds, but our roads led us together. And we have found the common ground where a lot of people are not even looking for it or don't know that it exists.
Yes.
You know, we both grew up, you know, I grew up in a violent home. I grew up with parents who were learning. I ran away from home. You know, I left home when I was 13. And I was rescued, thank goodness. You know, I was plucked out of that equation because it was like, this is not conducive to my healing and or to my growth. And I could have gone down a much darker road in my life had I not been rescued out of that situation. And I don't blame my parents now because I look at myself, okay, I'm going to be 57 in a couple months. I know I don't look it, but
You don't look it.
but I think back to my childhood, and when I think about all those things that still trigger me at
Right.
57 about when I was a child, all those things that were never resolved for my inner child,
Right.
my parents in those years were in their 20s, in their 30s, or in their 40s, and mostly their 30s, right? And I'm thinking, that was 20 years ago in my life. What kind of parent was I 20 years? What did I know 20 years ago? What do I know now that I didn't know then? How much have I grown in 20 years, 2 decades of life? So I can go back with a forgiving heart
Yes.
and say, if they had known better, they would have done better.
You
Would
know,
you say the same for you?
you know what? Well, yes, that's definitely yes. But there are some things that, as much as I am compassionate about, I believe are just a natural human default. And I think that some of these things, not all of these things, maybe 5% of the things that my mama did, it's not a matter of not forgiving. It was just a matter of, how did you know? What were you, what? Because I knew at 30, I get certain things at 30. I was like, that's not right. That
Right.
shit ain't right. I just
But we know by then, yeah.
Yeah, we know by then.
But why didn't they? Why didn't they know by
My
then if we know
mama,
by then?
my mama had some of those moments where she just, I know it. I could probably say for 100% sure she just said, fuck it. And she just didn't know. And she knew, but she went, fuck it. I just can't. And but on the other 90%, I believe she was just learning. And I don't think she really learned the one thing that I needed was love. I don't think she ever learned that vein of living. And I'm very blessed that she left a foundation for me. She left me hungry. She left me really hungry to find out what this love shit was all about. Like, what is the fascination with being immersed in an emotion that some scientists call a chemical reaction or whatever the fuck they want to call it? Like, what is it? I think because of that, even though I didn't receive love in my life, there was an imprint of you ever looked in the newspaper and it says, you'll see a layout and then in a little corner it says, you could be advertising here.
Yes.
That was me when it came to love.
You could be advertising here. Hello. I think for me, I never, and thank goodness, because I know, I can imagine what it would feel like to know that the love wasn't there.
Right.
Because even as a child, when I didn't feel understood, when I didn't feel loved, there came a point where I was able to sit back, and this was with the help of a therapist.
Right.
I didn't check myself in like the
Right.
character in the movie got checked into a hospital, but I went and sought out therapy when I was 18, 19 years old because I thought, I have to resolve this now because I don't want to carry this through my life. I don't know I think that may be rare in 19-year-olds to think that thought, but I never, what I came out of that with, point is, I never doubted my family's love. In the end, I never doubted their love for me, but what I don't condone, that I'm able to forgive because they didn't know better, but I don't condone it, is that it was a very sick and twisted expression of love. They knew with every word that was sharp as glass, with every slap and hit and smack and push and pinch and all that, they were expressing it as love in their own mind and psyche. Oh, that took me down a rabbit hole of trying to understand. So I wasn't those people who say, well, that's how I was raised, so that's why I do it. I went the opposite direction. I learned how not to be from the actions and choices of my parents that weren't necessarily all their fault, because all of my parents have told me stories in my adulthood about their upbringing, and they had it worse than I did. Right? So they were the ones to carry that behavior forward, that inheritance of that sick, twisted, fucked up expression of love. And I was determined not to carry that forward anymore.
You know what? You bring up a really good point here, and thank you for sharing that, Henry, darling. Because this is what the classic screenshots are all about, sharing and having how movies touch our lives and how they have shaped us. And you bring up a good, a piece and segment that this movie is basically about a man and a woman, a husband and wife, and she's tired. I'm done. And her husband basically notices this and says, I'm gonna put you in a space to get some help. And what I found interesting is that my experience in that was I remember I was about 15 and was going through, it was just before March break. And I was I went to I guess the same version, but the youth version for teenagers. And I was not happy. I was locked in and I didn't like my social work because I tried to commit suicide and my social worker was like, girl, you can't be doing this. No. And I didn't understand. I don't know in my head at that age, I really wanted to die, but I did try it later on in my life. And I knew then I really did want to die. But at that point, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it was a cry for help or I was just, I don't know.
Right.
But I know it landed my black ass in an institution where I didn't want to be. And just like the movie, when you go into the movie, you will notice that this wonderful character, the main character, has to go through these stages. So she starts at 1 and she ends up at 33. My experience was from 1 to 5, I believe. And once you got back to 1, you were allowed to leave. And
just to clarify what that means is that there are different floors, different wards in the psychiatric hospital, that the number of the hospital determines sort of how they are evaluating your mental illness. Right. So if you are off the chain completely on another planet in another dimension, you're down in 33A in a straitjacket. 33, you're not in a straitjacket. 33A, you're in a cell, straight isolated, right? And then 1 has better food and more comfortable rooms. Everyone gets their room. It's like a little hotel almost, right? And I mean, there was a hardcore bitch of a head nurse on that ward that eventually fucked with Virginia, the main character, and got her derailed again. That landed her in the straitjacket in the isolation.
Thank you for that in-depth description, because I tell you, that's exactly what I went through. No, I didn't go to 33A and I didn't have a straitjacket, but I went
Thank God.
Thank you. Amen. Jesus, glory to heaven. Or whatever.
Baby Jesus.
Buddha. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Buddha. Woo-hoo.
Hare Krishna. Woo-hoo. I don't know. Moses.
Yahweh. Did you say Elvis?
Elvis. And God bless Elvis. Thank you, Elvis. Either way, my point is I'm very grateful for not being that in-depth. Point being, I was with a lot of other children who had, and they were, I'm just going to be straight here. A lot of rich white kids end up in these places. And
can I ask you a question for the audience?
Sure.
How many people of color or BIPOC people were presented as patients in this hospital?
From my expertise, apparently I'm the only fucked up black person in all.
Well, I think there was one. She was very light skinned, but I think there was one. She didn't have any lines.
Right. And in my experience, it was just me, and I noticed these things. So
that was you.
The commonality of all the kids, besides color, like besides the lack of the different representation. Thank God. Do we want to be all represented? I don't know. The point is, the point is. The message was clear, and every kid. I remember talking to a girl named Susan, and she gave me a Cracked magazine. How funny!
I loved Cracked.
I love Cracked, and I remember her writing her phone number and calling Susan. But I remember talking to Susan. She was a red hair, beautiful little girl. She was so just adorable. I think she was a year younger than me, and I said, "Why are you in here?" She's like, "Well, I tried to take some pills and I cut my wrist," and she went in it to win it and lost. Thank God.
Oh,
and she went dramatic, and she said, "I just want my parents to talk to me." And when I talked to all the other kids in there, it wasn't about they were too rich, they weren't poor, they just didn't. It was that they wanted to be heard. And the whole experience, and this is a little aside. Let me take a little side. When I was in the kitchen and dinner time came, all the cutlery was there. And you couldn't leave the room until all the cutlery was accounted for. That's when I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I wasn't fucking crazy. I was just sad. I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. So, so I did what I had to do, and I got to my level 1, and I was out. And looking at the movie, what I really appreciated most about the movie, because I was my social worker put me in there, Betsy Prager, wherever you are, shout out, girl. She waited for me and came out. But what I loved with the movie was that this husband put his wife in there, and he never gave up on her. He
ever
never gave up on her. He just sat with, and every week he'd come and he never judged her. He's like, "Okay, baby, what are you hearing, baby?" And he never
and he was concerned.
And he would love her.
The actor's name is Mark Stevens, incidentally.
And that character, Mark Stevens, a representation on how we should all love each other in times of crisis, when things go broken, so to speak.
And when you know something is wrong with your partner, when you can sense that there's something off, there's something wrong, and you do something about it, that supports them.
Yes. What I love is that, as I was saying...
Go ahead.
Well,
it's usually me. It's usually me talking up a storm. But you go.
Why, thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, I can go. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta go back to
bed. It's very early. It's
early for me. So right now I'm living on morning fumes, and I apologize.
Do not apologize. We've all been there.
Oh, been there now. My point is what he just fucking said, is that he was there and he didn't judge her. He loved her. And when you see something wrong with your partner, you should say something. Or at least lovingly. There's ways, and this movie is a great example how to support your partner if you believe the car has lost the gas, you know what I'm saying, and they're just driving and with no wheels. Like, there's ways of helping your partner, and everybody thinks that help means to be like, sometimes you just got to put them in the arms of somebody who knows more than you, and just let life take its toll, and not worry if they're going to leave you or not. Just worry about the individual, or just let the individual get the help they need. And if it's real love, which we found in this movie, they drive off onto the bus of the sunset, you'll end up back together. And and that's what I loved about this movie, that it didn't have a dire consequence with, I'm gonna heal and I don't love you anymore and I'm gone. It was like, nah, thanks, brother. Thanks, love.
Right. I can't handle your damage.
Right. Thank you.
I think we all have issues. We all have challenges. One of the things I loved about it too, and this is in the writing, is that he fucked up sometimes. He put pressure on the hospital to release her before she was ready to be released.
Yes. Stanley agrees.
Stanley agrees.
Yes.
He heard a snake outside my house.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all I wanted to say was that it also, I mean, she was the center of the story. Olivia de Havilland's character, Virginia.
Right.
Mark Stevens, who plays her husband, Robert Cunningham, is a secondary character, but he's somehow, even when he's not in the scene, he's present.
Right.
Right. And she doesn't always know if she can trust that it's him.
Right.
Right. She's really foggy. Oh, I'm gonna let you talk about the shock treatment too.
Oh, that
was shocking.
Insane. Oh my, what we all know when we, there are movies that really kind of talk about it. Like, because you know what this is? Let me just, because I remember what I was saying in the movie, and I just want to remind myself that this reminded me of the female version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Cuckoo's Nest.
But much more brilliant. I just think it was because you know what it was is that One Flew Over. Check that movie out if you haven't. If you're going for social work or psychology or some bullshit like that, you're gonna watch that movie. My point is, the secondary characters in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or the background characters, were definitely not as memorable as the ones here. I remember Modeling Lady. She would.
Yes.
There's one character who would literally float in every scene, like she would dance, just randomly dance. And there wasn't no follow-up. It wasn't like they were following the character going, okay, let's see if she's going to be okay. She was just a character in the place. Like, this is what she did. This is what she did.
No lines. No lines.
No lines. This is what she did.
Every single one of these supporting cast, whether they had lines or not,
right,
had a fully fleshed out, you could see it in the way that they behaved, that they had a fully fleshed out individual story.
Yes.
Every single one of them. There were some names like Celeste Holm, who played Grace, who was a really sweet friend of hers that she made right away. Tried to sort of gently guide her through those rough spots of confusion.
Right.
Of course, Leo Genn, who played Dr. Kick, the nice therapist who fought for her. He tried to keep her there when they were trying to get her out because of the money, and we need to get more turnover, that stuff. Beulah Bondi, who was the older lady who was like, oh, my family is so wealthy and I have all more jewels than I can handle. I mean, a lot wonderful character actors all throughout this. And you care about them. That's the thing. You care about every single person that you see in there, no matter if they're on level 1 or level 33.
Yes, you can, and like I said, this movie was definitely, it pulled at my heartstrings, because what I said, I loved how the doctor, you're watching this woman go through this. She starts off at 1, like we said, 1 represents, you're getting the fuck out of there, and 33A is like, you got work to do. You ain't going nowhere. And we see this woman go into this despair, and she doesn't remember what day it is, and she thinks it's May and it's really November, or if it's November, it's really May. She doesn't know, time has passed. She doesn't understand why in her memory she has a fear of love, why she even turned down her first marriage. And I don't want to give away anything, but her first marriage, first love, it doesn't end very well. So
give it away.
Give it away now. So point being, she finds out that there are triggers from this doctor who says, your mama didn't love you, and you loved your papa, and he wasn't loyal to you. But what I loved is that it really connected the dots for me. I knew a lot of these dots, but they brought them back. I'm like, oh yeah, I see why. I went looking for love in all the wrong places.
Well, and her father, she was so enamored with her father. And when her father betrayed his loyalty to her by taking the mother's side on something, it was over something stupid like, her doll.
The doll.
Right? Her neighbor, she traded dolls with a neighbor. And the mom forced her to get her old doll back, and her father took her mother's side. right? And she was pissed off. And so she took this little doll of a soldier that reminded her of her father, and she smashed the fuck out of that doll.
Yes,
And
she
then
did.
her
Beat it.
father died. And she took on the guilt of, I wished it. I wished his death upon him. So
Aw.
she carried that all throughout. And then her first husband, like you said, reminded her a lot of her father. And when he proposed to her, she was like, I can't, I'm not feeling very well. I can't talk about this right now. They were on their way to a party or something. And she made him turn around to go take her home because she wasn't feeling well.
Right.
And they got hit by a truck and he died. So it's like, you know, these psychological traumas that are all tied and somehow woven together.
Yes.
You know, with her husband representing her father figure to her, because he's kind of like her father in personality too.
Right.
And it was the date that, I think it was the date that the husband or her fiance was killed in the car accident, would show up on the movie screen, May 12th, you know, and she'd get all sweaty and like, I gotta get out of here, you know. She didn't know what it was.
Right.
But there are always those little moments that trigger something in us.
There's a beginning, I've met a lot of people in my life. I've met a lot of assholes, a lot of bitches, a lot of great people, a lot of not so great people.
Right.
And you know, the way empathy or compassion comes into it, you realize that there's a big seed for all of this. There's a seed for good behavior. There's a seed. Everything starts somewhere. And you learn to see the compassionate side to that. Like, where did this all come from? And that's how I delved into myself, learning why I went after certain things or why I felt inadequate in my life at certain times.
Right.
Or what were the issues surrounding my negative behavior or my negative inner talk. And when you find the beginnings, you realize you're really, really fucking hard on yourself. You really got to be patient with yourself, because I believe most of my journey, like, it's very true that you will play things over and over and over and over and over until you figure it out. And I believe that's the reason why we feel a lot of repetition in our lives. Just like this woman, she kept playing out because her body wanted to heal. It's like, come on, girl, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. Why is it you don't want to get married? Why is it you're running away from your marriage? Why do you feel these ways? And I think that if we notice reoccurring events in our life, it behooves us to just at least look into it and go, why am I attracted to these shitty, toxic people? Perhaps.
Or why am I blocking certain things, right? Because she can remember her address, or she can remember certain dates, but her social security number she remembered like that, right? We block things as a means of, or the brain blocks things as a means of protecting ourselves from self-harm, from harming other people, or from reliving a trauma. Now, this movie came out in 1948, which was a very controversial, very ahead of its time. Because there were no words back then about like PTSD. We didn't know what that was in 1948. We talked about shell shock from being on the front lines of battle and war, but nobody was really thinking in terms of other kinds of PTSD or CPTSD, which is something that I have, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is directly tied to childhood. It's in your childhood, traumas in your childhood. And to have been through that process of diagnosis gave me the tools, some tools, to be able to handle it. And navigate it a little bit better. And so I think that for any of our buffs out there who may be going through triggers, things that on a regular basis are triggering you, you don't have to go and check yourself into a facility, but there is help out there, because we know a whole lot more than we did in 1948. That's
hell yeah. And there's what, a lot of it will, as we're going into our future, and a lot of people are waking up to that, what most people think is good for 2025. There's no time limit to when you have to achieve anything in your life.
Yeah.
You can achieve it when you're ready, and the universe will be there for you. You just have to work at yourself daily, and that can look like anything. So a lot of the physical pressures we have, while we don't deal with the issues or the triggers because we think we're going to miss life. So I'm just going to grab something now and hope for the best. Don't fucking do that. Take your time. There is so much. My God, I sound like my fucking mother. Take your time. There's so much life. Jesus Christ. What is going on?
Okay. She was right. There was one moment she was right. Remember when Virginia was talking about all the time she lost? Like
yes.
those 5 months or completely lost. Right. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If you're on a journey toward wellness and healing, it doesn't matter how many months you were out of body. It really doesn't.
It doesn't matter. And that was my thing. I was such in a rush to trying to fix everything that I wasn't stopping to check if I was fixing anything. You know, I was like, I got it. And if I figured if I just kept going and I wouldn't. And yeah, there were times where I remember one. I mean, it's funny, but it gets the point across. Where I think I was like 26 or 20. Yeah, 26. And we went to go see a movie called The General's Daughter. Holy shit.
I don't know that movie.
John Travolta and some other white woman. But the point is, this girl gets abused.
John Travolta is a white woman too. Well, he was in Hairspray. Okay, anyway, keep going.
The premise is some girl gets abused by her father, who's the main general, you know, the top motherfucker. And he doesn't want to admit it. And she, you know, spoiler alert, she kills herself just because she wants the attention. Anyways, I am watching this movie, and how many times I felt like killing myself just so my mom understood the pain that I had went through as a child. And I didn't know this movie was a trigger for me. And I came out there and I just fucking bawled. I couldn't stop crying. My girlfriend was with me. She's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No. Oh my God."
Thank God she was there with you.
And I realized that there was some work to be done. And I think I did a lot of the work on my own. I had a lot of counselors when I was in the group homes, and I aged out at 19. But after that, a lot of my counseling just went through personal experiences. I just meet people and I would notice them. Like, oh my God, you remind me of. That was a pause for the cause. You remind me of.
Like, did the lights go out?
My point is, when I noticed someone reminded me of my mother, my father, or sister, I realized I had work to be done. And I'd automatically look at them and go, what is it I don't like about you? And it's not you. And that's how I did my counseling. So a lot of my relationships, I would just fly by because I knew I was just going to be there for a minute to learn something and move on. That's it. That's just who I was.
Not unlike Virginia, when she was going from ward to ward to ward, and she was meeting all different kinds of people, all women, right? Because the only time that the male patients and the women patients came together was at the dance,
right?
Or at the cafe.
Yes, the dance, yes.
Or at the cafe when they had visitors come, right? But she would meet. It reminded me a little bit of like one of these journey stories, like The Wizard of Oz, or like the Bluebird that we watched.
Right.
We did an episode on. If you go back and look, where every single person that she met along the way had some little gift to give her, even if they didn't have any lines. If she interacted with them, there was a reason. Like, you remember that one character, Hester?
Yep.
Who like beat the crap out of anybody who came near her. She was down in 33, and she had this wild-eyed kind of, thing. And Virginia befriends her because she senses something of herself
inside of her.
In Hester, I have felt the way you feel. And that's the only person who ever expressed any loving or empathy to that character, Hester. And in the end, the only thing she says at the end is does she say thank you or goodbye, Virginia?
Yes,
or
goodbye.
something.
You said
Goodbye, Virginia. And it just, you know, that meme that's been going around, or that GIF where it's like somebody has in one hand this little ball of light and they pass it on to somebody else's hand.
something like that, sure.
It's a very, very simple gesture,
Right.
but no matter what we're going through, we are all teachers, we are all students. We all have something to share. We have all something to give.
And
And
that brings me to a wonderful podcast that Henry C. has, and it's called The Lost
Traveler Podcast.
And yes, and check him out. I mean, he talks with some really great guests. You're gonna get your entertainment worth, right? And this is an expansion of it that we've decided to collaborate on, because I have my own podcast as well.
That's right. The Curious Conversation on bluntreflections.com.
And you can find either of us on social media. And if you do follow my Twitter account, which brings me to my crown, I do live talks usually on Tuesdays about Tiara Tuesdays on how to improve that connection with your crown chakra, keeping it shiny and shit. That's what I'm talking. So go ahead and join us, because we are really passionate about mental health and in every aspect we're trying to cover in our personal lives and the movies that we watch, because we all watch movies and we should really reflect on them when we can. Of if when you watch a movie and you leave a movie, you're really mad, you're like, oh, or you watch a movie or you're really happy, it's affecting your mental health, and you should look into that. Perhaps there's a trigger, maybe it's just a good damn movie, maybe it was a terrible movie, but we try to inspire that conversation about the movies, specifically the classic movies. So go ahead, smash that bell, mothers. Do it!
Mothers and fathers. That's right. No children on this channel, because we drop in an occasional F-bomb. But yes.
Nannies too. Nannies, anybody,
That's right. Any adult in the parenting generation, whether or not you have children,
right,
or grandchildren, or people in your care, young people, if you're a teacher, a mentor, whatever, all of these conversations matter for you, because and feel free to comment on anything that either you agree with, disagree with. Share your stories of mental health and challenge and your journey, because we want to know. We want to have you as a guest on this show.
Heck yeah, we going global. We going global.
We are global. I'm in Spain, and she's in
British
Columbia. Right, so we are a global organization. I think that.
Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
I think that one of the things that we talk about pretty often is how each person's journey is uniquely their own. We all have different perspectives. There is common ground to be found, and we have to acknowledge that and look for it, seek it out, because when we find it, it's like treasure, it's like gold. And to hold each other up during those times where we feel a bit lost. This is why I called my podcast The Lost Traveler, because we are all lost travelers.
But very well said. And when you surround yourself with good people and you have a humble attitude about that, life is definitely not a shit pit.
Or a snake pit. Let's do a remake, and we'll call it the shit pit. That's our cup of the week today, everybody. The shit pit. I don't know if I can find a mug with that one on it. But, one of the other things I wanted to mention is that there's a fairly new science out there called epigenetics.
Okay.
And what epigenetics is showing us through science is that we all carry ancestral memory in our genetic makeup and our DNA. And when we're looking through the lens of classic film, we may not know readily what is triggering us about the film, but it might have triggered somebody in our ancestry who's in our blood, in our genetic makeup, that we are feeling. and that
Yes.
we have a deeper understanding now of what our ancestors went through. This is one of the things I love about classic film, and I even say it in the undercarriage, is that it's like a time machine. Going
Yes.
back,
Time machine.
and how validating is it to
Right.
watch a movie like The Snake Pit from 1948,
Right.
and they're talking about things that we are still
Talking about
dealing
today,
with
you
and
know what I mean?
experiencing.
That's what I love about these movies. It reminds us how much work we have to do, how much work we have done.
Thank
And
you.
that for me it garners compassion, empathy for the human race. You know, like honestly, because when you look at this, and this movie was, you know, at one point this movie would have been a trigger. Booyah, bitches. It would have shot me right in the head. But this time, watching it from a different perspective, a healing journey, a healing perspective, I just understood and I had compassion. I'm like, yeah, girl, don't worry. You get out there little by little. Because, you know, that's what the movie did for me. And it's nice and refreshing to watch a movie and not be in the snake pit and go, oh, okay, I see it. You know, if it made me celebrate myself and saying, hey, and even if you are watching the movie and you feel like, oh my God, I'm in it, you can still celebrate that there's a point that you'll be watching it from above. And there's this great scene where
Yes.
they're all in it. They're all and they literally look like snakes, and the camera is pandering above them, and they're above them. I got my I'm sweating like shit. Okay, pandering above them, and it looks like a snake pit. It literally looks like a snake pit, and you're going, "Oh my goodness, it's so cool!" And it's a simple effect, but the point is, one day, you can look above the pit or the shit pit called your life and say I've transcended that. And you know, that's
Yeah.
what the movie did for me. I could look back at the memories and go safely back to my 10-year-old self and remember I ran out of my house screaming at the sky because I believe God was there and saying, hey, I hate my life, do something about it. And so I did. And not recommending anybody run away from home at any age. Figure it out. Do what you got to do. But that I remember that's what my response was. I left. And you can do that in your own life. You can leave toxic people behind. You can be dramatic about it, or you can just put up boundaries. But sometimes it's hard to put up boundaries. So, you know, I didn't have to do it at that age. I could have told my mama, you can't do this. So the universe kind of took me out. But boundaries is a key place. And this woman in the movies, what I loved is that she had an unlimited boundary in her husband who supported her, and that's a takeaway from me. That's a takeaway from me. Just support people. Support. It's support.
The takeaway for me was that I believe that every human being on the planet at some point in our lifetime feels like we are in a snake pit. Like we are in a toxic, venomous, there's no way I can get out. Because she went from being just a regular gal going through life, right? Ooh, look at the shadow puppetry on the wall behind you. She went through her life the way people do, but then something happened that clicked her out of her sense of normalcy. And it took her having a complete breakdown. And she got into the lowest level where she had no control. She had to surrender to the straitjacket that they put on her to protect her, right? They had to protect her. And
they had to protect her.
right. And so the takeaway for me is that we are all walking around having experienced our own particular snake pit.
Yes.
That one scene at the dance that always melts me down into a pile of tears, and it did this time again. I've seen this movie 100 times. It always makes me sob. Is that here are all these people who are on a journey. They want to be well. They want to be stable. They want to be balanced in their heads, in their minds, in their hearts, in their lives. And this one very skinny waif stands up on the stage and she sings this beautiful song called Going Home. And you can see the longing in her eyes. And the whole place just gets quiet. And then everyone starts singing this song, Going Home. They know they're going home. And that's the thing. We've all been in a snake pit, but there's always hope that we can transcend it. And like you said, QueenB, look at it from above someday and see the journey, see the layers, the 33A layers of our lives and our mental health journey, because we all have it. We all have to talk about it, because that's how you heal. It's by sharing your story.
That's just pretty much, that sums it up for me. I tell you, like, I can tell you that the time that I spent, my short time in a psych ward with teens who were feeling unloved and it was a wake up call for me. Yes, I mean, I realized I was just more sad than at the time, but like I said, I was very blessed to have someone on the outside, my social worker, Betsy Pragers, who was very committed to allowing me to believe in myself. She really needed me to believe in myself. And I can see the power in that now. Took me
like
a long
Dr. Kick.
Yeah,
like Dr. Kick in this film.
Yeah, it took me
We didn't
a long
talk enough about him, but
it took me a long
died.
time to just hear her and realize that, like Dr. Kick said, like, it's not your fault. You were a child. Lord Jesus, Elvis and whoever else.
It wasn't your fault.
It wasn't your fault. Life, we're just meant
that was the cup of the week. It wasn't your fault.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you were in a shit pit. It's not your fault.
Snake pit. That's gonna be our title for this video, the shit pit. QueenB, you are so full of them. You're so full of these wonderful little moments of deliciousness.
Oh, I tell you, my brother, I tell you, I don't even know sometimes. But it's being in, like I said, looking at that movie, I am so glad that I started to believe in myself, because I got to live a life to meet someone like you.
Oh.
And to do something like this. So, sometimes I think to myself, if I had been so overwhelmed with my life that I thought I should take it, I would have missed all of this. And I'm so glad that I had the confidence. Listen to this. You hear that, guys? Not about money or anything. The reason why I started to live was because of confidence. And the reason why I wanted to die was because of fear. These two are in your power.
Yes.
These two are in your power. So if you're talking to anybody or anybody who is resonating, who feels like they're end of life, it's a shift in confidence and believing in self or fear. And until someone can believe in themselves, try your best to be that person for them, because everybody needs love, baby.
See, there are, even from an old black and white movie, 1948, there are jewels, pearls of wisdom that we can still remember and glean from. So many people have said to me, "Oh, I don't like black and white movies. They're boring." I'm like, you're not watching the right black and white films.
You're not.
And they're not all black and white. Some are.
But you know what? Black and white movies have a better capability of showing the subtle tones within the movie. Yeah, I fucking did that. The subtle tones, just like in life, black and white helps you to appreciate the subtle tones in life. So take a chance. Look at check out a black and white movie, not because it's got something to do. Well, because there's so many lessons in our infantry of TV that you can learn. that infancy, not infantry, infancy.
Infantry. It's all a war. It's all a battle, you know. But it also, for those of us who don't have our grandparents around, these were the movies that they gave them the
Hell
wisdom.
yeah, that's why grandma's so goddamn smart.
And the life skills.
Yeah, and if you notice, like, because as we wrap it up, if you notice, if you've got the pleasure and the courage to watch a black and white film,
things move a little bit slower, but not to the point where it's boredom, but a point where your eyes and your mind can really take in every single moment of the movie. You know, TV today, you're like, bam, bam, boom, shit happens. But in this way, in the black and white classic movies, things have a way of just slowly simmering so you can understand and learn critical thinking and how A got to B. So you can motherfucking know that A and B, you didn't just jump there, you had to move there. And these movies allow your mind to flow with the actual, whether it be the fashion of the movie, the lines of the music, the movies, the characters of the movie. You can actually follow it and go, oh my God. And when you look at a black and white movie or an early classic movie, you will see how quickly time has sped by and how much you're missing. Right? It almost like retrains your brain to just take in things slowly.
That's all I had to say. I'm done.
It's like a reboot. It's like a reboot. It's like a reboot. Well, listen, I think that everybody, if you have not gone to watch The Snake Pit, go down into our undercarriage. Click the link that we have provided there. In fact, for any movie that we have talked about, there is a link to watch the film for free because we want these to be accessible to all. And I was going to say one other thing.
It's just about time.
Also, look for the next week's film down in the undercarriage as well with a brief description. We recommend that you watch the movies before watching our episodes so that you have context. And please get in on the conversation. Click the like, subscribe, tell other people about us because that helps the algorithms. But it's also nice to know that we're building community and we're not just a couple talking heads.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You can get a slip. You can get anything. You can get a cup of coffee and watch us. You can sit down and check everything out. Read the shit in the undercarriage.
Get part of the
popcorn.
You can even play a character. You know what I mean? You can play a character. I don't know. I don't know who that was supposed to be, but that was my attempt as a character.
Who was that character?
I don't know. That's exactly a character.
Made it up.
Yes.
See how we crack open the creative in the human being universally.
Well, my brother Henry C. I got to go. I got to go, baby. And
all right.
We'll see you next week. All right.
QueenB. No. QueenB.
QueenB. You know, and that's the snake pit. That's my little woo. I got the shadow in the back. Use that shadow. Use it, man.
Nobody does shadow puppets anymore. I love you, QueenB.
I love you too.
We love you, Buffs. See you next week.